My son placed me in a care home and sold the house his father gave to me in the will. He said it was better to have me away from everyone and called me troublesome. I didn't fight back. I just called the lawyer, and what happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you how it all unfolded. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. We are on a journey to our first 100 subscribers. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and commenting where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. My name is Evelyn May Carter, and I've lived nearly all my 78 years without ever causing a scene. I was a teacher for 40 of them, English literature mostly. The kind of woman who made chicken soup from scratch, wrote thank you notes by hand, and believed the best in people, especially my family, especially my son. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I tried to raise him right. His father, Thomas, did the stern talking when needed. I handled the rest, the scraped knees, the heartbreaks, the report cards that came home crumpled. We weren't rich, but we had the kind of life you look back on with warmth. The house on Maple Lane was where that life unfolded. 2 stories, white siding, green shutters that needed repainting every spring. Thomas loved that house, called it his castle. When he passed 6 years ago, he left it to me in his will, said, "You stay here, Evie, where we built everything." And I did. Even when the stairs got harder to climb, even when the nights felt colder, I stayed, surrounded by the echo of a man who loved me fully, and memories that lined every wall like old wallpaper. Then slowly things began to change. My son Jordan started showing up more often. At first I thought it was sweet. He brought groceries, fixed the sink, made sure the smoke detectors were working. But there was a shift in the way he spoke to me. Less mom and more you. Less how are you feeling? And more you can't keep living like this. It was subtle at first. A little patronizing chuckle when I asked about his kids. A concerned frown when I tripped over the rug. But the real change came the day he brought his wife along. They sat me down in the living room like I was a student being called to the principal's office. Jordan spoke in a rehearsed tone, his hands folded too neatly. "Mom, we've been talking, and we think it's time you consider something safer. Care home. One of the good ones." I remember blinking at him, waiting for the punchline. "I'm fine here," I said, my voice steady. He shook his head, already prepared for that. "You forget things, Mom. You've fallen twice. The neighborhood's changed and it's just not safe." His wife, Miranda, chimed in with that sickening tone people use when they're pretending to care. "It's not about taking anything from you. It's about giving you peace of mind." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just looked at the photo of Thomas on the mantel and nodded. "If that's what you really think is best." That was my mistake. A week later, I was moved into a care home on the edge of town. Rosewood Retirement Village. It sounded nice enough. Clean halls, friendly staff, bingo on Wednesdays. But it wasn't mine. It wasn't home. I tried to keep my chin up. I smiled during orientation, learned everyone's names, even joined the morning walking group. But every night, when I lay down on that too-firm mattress, I missed the creak of the Maple Lane staircase, the wind against my bedroom window, the sound of the old heater kicking in around midnight. 2 weeks into my stay, I called Jordan to ask him to bring me my knitted blankets from the hall closet. He sounded distracted, annoyed. "Yeah, about that, Mom. You might want to sit down." That's when he told me. He had sold the house. My house. The one Thomas gave me. He'd done it quietly behind my back. Said he had power of attorney now, and that it was just sitting there, wasting space. Said it was better this way. He could use the money to take care of things. When I didn't respond, he added, "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You've been troublesome lately, and honestly, this is better for everyone. Better for everyone." I hung up the phone, hands trembling, heart thudding in my ears. I sat there in that quiet, sterile room and realized my own son had treated me like a burden to be swept aside. And the worst part? I had let it happen. But what Jordan didn't realize, what he never understood, was that Evelyn May Carter might have been gentle, but she was not weak. And I still had one move left to make. It took me 3 days to stop shaking. Not because I was afraid, but because the betrayal ran so deep it left a tremor in my bones. I had spent a lifetime putting family first, putting him first. When his father died, I helped him with the funeral, sorted through the legal mess, comforted his children while my own grief sat untouched on the kitchen counter beside a pile of sympathy cards. And now? He had erased me like I was some embarrassing mistake. The care home staff were kind, but they weren't blind. I saw the way the nurse Carla watched me, tentative, concerned. She brought me extra pudding at dinner and asked softly, "You okay today, Mrs. Carter?" I always answered with a smile. "Just fine, thank you." But inside I was unraveling. I couldn't stop seeing the papers he must have signed, the keys he must have handed over to strangers. My husband's workshop gone. The magnolia tree Thomas planted the year Jordan was born. Someone else's now. I wondered if the new owners knew the bedroom walls had once held lullabies and late-night whispers. Probably not. Probably didn't care. What gnawed at me most was the power of attorney. I remembered signing something last year when I had the flu and couldn't get to the pharmacy. Jordan had stood in my kitchen, waving forms in front of me, saying, "Just in case, Mom." I hadn't read them. I trusted him. My only child. That trust had been my undoing. I called him once more, out of some pathetic hope that maybe there was a misunderstanding, some missing detail. "Jordan," I said, "I need to understand why you did this." He didn't even flinch. "Mom, it's not personal. You're getting older, and I'm trying to help you transition. It's not like you were using the house. I lived in that house. You existed in that house," he corrected. "Now you're safe. Cared for. That's what matters." There was a long silence between us then. I could hear his kids yelling in the background. Miranda's voice sharp, telling them to calm down. Jordan sighed. "Look, I gotta go. Don't make this into a thing." He hung up. And that was it. That was the moment I felt something in me go still, like a lake freezing over. I sat down, pulled out my little address book, and flipped to the worn, yellowed page that read Martin G. Keller. He had handled our wills when Thomas passed, and I remembered the way he looked at us then, like we were worth his time. I called him. "Evelyn," he said, surprised but warm. "How are you doing, dear?" "Not well, Martin," I replied, steady. "I think I've just been robbed." The next day, he came to Rosewood, brought his briefcase and an intern with a notepad. I told him everything, every word, every signature I regretted, every hollow apology Jordan had thrown my way. He listened, sharp eyes taking everything in. "Let me be clear," he said after an hour. "What your son did is not just morally bankrupt, it's likely illegal. Fraud, coercion, elder financial abuse. I don't want to destroy him," I said quietly. "I just want what's mine." Martin nodded. "We'll start there." By the following afternoon, papers were filed. Jordan didn't see it coming. He was arrested at his office, white-collar crime division. The news traveled fast. Miranda showed up to Rosewood within hours, her face pale and blotchy from crying. She wasn't wearing makeup, and she had that desperate edge to her voice that people get when their world has been upended. "I know you're angry," she began, hands shaking. "But please, he's still your son. The kids are terrified. He made a mistake." I let her talk. I let her cry. I even handed her a tissue from the box on my bedside table. But when she finally paused, I said it plainly. "He stays in jail until I have my house back. Every lamp, every picture frame, every drawer of my husband's tools. All of it." Her mouth fell open. "You can't mean that. Ido." She left in stunned silence, and I closed my door behind her. I didn't cry. I didn't even sigh. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Because now the war had begun, and I was no longer the kind of woman who signed without reading. The morning after Miranda left, I woke up with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. The kind that sits deep in your chest and says, "You've been quiet long enough." For weeks, maybe months, I'd let myself be carried like driftwood in someone else's current. But not anymore. Not after what he did. I had spent nearly 8 decades being decent, polite, agreeable. And for what? So my son could sell my home behind my back and call it help? Martin had filed the initial complaint fast. He was swift like that. He knew time was everything in cases like this, especially when the victim still had all her faculties and a paper trail to back her up. The power of attorney Jordan had waved in front of the buyers? Invalid. He'd manipulated me into signing it under pretenses. And the sale itself? A rush job, cash buyer, closed in less than 2 weeks. Shady from every angle. I'm going to be honest, Martin said during our next meeting. We have leverage, but this won't be easy. He'll fight. Especially if the money's already been spent. Let him, I replied. Let him scrape and spin and lie. I'm not going to blink. Jordan called from jail on the third day. It was surreal, hearing his voice from a number I didn't recognize, followed by that robotic message. You have a prepaid call from an inmate at. I almost didn't answer. But I was curious. I wanted to hear how he'd spin it now. Mom, he breathed like I was his savior. Look, I messed up. I shouldn't have gone about it like that. I was trying to keep things manageable. I didn't speak. Just listened. You know how expensive things are. Between the kids, the house, Miranda's surgery last year, we were drowning. I thought if I could sell the house, invest a little, it would help all of us. I wasn't trying to hurt you. You took my life, I said finally. You sold it like a used car. Silence. Just get me out, he whispered. Please. I'll fix it. I swear. I hung up. The next few days were a blur of legal updates. Martin had frozen the proceeds from the sale before Jordan's accounts could be emptied. The court granted an emergency injunction to block any renovation or resale by the new buyer. And me? I sat in the common room at Rosewood and played cards with Dorothy and Lorraine like nothing was happening. But inside, I was sharpening every part of myself that had been dulled by grief and motherhood. People started treating me differently. The staff called me Mrs. Carter instead of Evie. There was a weight to my presence now. A dignity they hadn't expected from someone who shuffled around in orthopedic slippers. Even the residents noticed. You're glowing, Lorraine said one afternoon. Did something good happen? I'm getting my house back, I replied. And I smiled. That's when Miranda came back. This time she brought the children, my grandchildren. I knew it was a tactic, a play for sympathy. They stood awkwardly in the hallway while she begged me again, voice low and cracked. He's scared, Evelyn. He's in a cell with strangers barely eating. The kids cry every night. Just talk to the DA. Ask them to drop the charges. We'll return the money. We'll get a loan. Whatever it takes. I looked at the little girl hiding behind her mother's leg, clutching a stuffed bear. I wanted to scoop her up, kiss her forehead and say it would all be okay. But then I remembered the last time I saw her. It had been months before the betrayal. Jordan had promised to bring them by after school, but never did. Just like all his other promises. So I said the same words again. He stays in jail until I have my house. Miranda's eyes flared. You're punishing the whole family. No, I said calmly. He did that. I'm just setting the terms. And that was the moment I knew something in me had changed for good. I didn't need their guilt, their explanations, their apologies. I needed my home, my history, my sanctuary. And I wasn't asking anymore. It was a rainy Thursday when I got the call. Miranda was on her way over. No children this time. Just her. The nurse at the front desk said she looked tired, like someone who hadn't slept in days. I didn't bother changing out of my cardigan or fluffing the couch pillow. I had no interest in presenting warmth. I sat at the small table by the window, a cup of chamomile cooling in front of me, and waited. When she arrived, her eyes were puffy, lips chapped, hair thrown up in one of those messy buns young women wear when they're too exhausted to care. She didn't say hello. She didn't even sit down. Do you even care what this is doing to the kids? She asked, voice tight, barely above a whisper. Do you care what it's doing to me? I took a sip of my tea. I care very much. That's why I asked him not to betray me. Her breath hitched like she hadn't expected me to be so calm. So unmoved. He's your son. Yes. And I'm his mother. Not his asset. She finally sat down, pressing her palms against her knees. We were desperate. The debt was crushing us. He thought if he sold the house. He didn't own the house, I snapped, sharper than I meant to, but it was the first time my voice had risen since all of this began. He never asked. He never explained. He just took. And I let him do it because I trusted him. The silence that followed was heavy. A silence soaked in every unsaid truth between us. I saw something flicker in her expression then, not guilt, not exactly. Maybe recognition. Maybe shame. I know it was wrong, she said finally. But Evelyn, he's not handling jail well. He's not built for that. I raised an eyebrow. And I wasn't built for being shoved into a care home while strangers walked through my living room. deciding which wall they'd put their TV on. She didn't reply, just stared at the floor, eyes glazed. When she finally looked back up at me, her face had softened. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope, sliding it across the table. "What's this?" "Every document," she said. "The deed transfer, the account statements, the names of the buyers. We'll undo it. But I need your help too. Talk to the prosecutor. Tell them you don't want jail time, just restitution. A deal." I studied the envelope, then looked at her. "You really think I should save him from the consequences of what he did?" "No," she said, her voice quiet. "I think you should save what's left of your family." That landed heavier than she probably intended. For a moment I saw the ghost of what I once hoped she'd be. A daughter-in-law who respected our bond. A mother who would raise her children with integrity. But we were past hoping. All that mattered now was action. I picked up the envelope. "He returns my house. In writing. Signed. Not a promise, a transfer. Then I'll consider talking to the DA." She nodded slowly. "You'll have it by tomorrow." As she walked out, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt weary. Like I just finished crossing a river in the middle of winter. But I also felt anchored for the first time in a long while. I had drawn my line, and for once everyone knew it was real. That night I stood by my window watching the rain streak down the glass. In the distance, the city lights blinked like they were trying to signal something. I thought of Jordan, alone in a cell, probably pacing, probably still telling himself he was the victim. And I thought of Thomas. How he would have handled all of this. He would have been heartbroken. But he also would have been proud. Because I wasn't just defending a house. I was defending myself. By Friday morning, the envelope was back in Martin's hands. The deed transfer had been signed. Notarized. The original buyers had agreed to rescind the sale in exchange for a small settlement. Jordan's money, not mine. Martin read the paperwork with a lawyer's trained eye, nodding slowly, then looking up at me with something like quiet admiration. "It's all here," he said. "You'll have your home back by the end of the week." I didn't smile. I just leaned back in the chair, let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like repair, painful, overdue, and slightly terrifying. I had been in that care home for nearly 4 months. Long enough for the roots of my old life to begin lifting from the soil. But I still remembered every drawer, every photo frame, every chip in the kitchen tile. And now it was all returning. But Jordan wasn't. Not yet. The next step was mine. Martin said the DA was open to a plea deal. Reduced time, community service, a suspended sentence. If the victim was willing to support it. The victim. That word looked strange on me. But I wore it. I earned it. I asked for 24 hours to think. The news of Jordan's arrest had already made the rounds in town. People whispered, pretended not to know. But Rosewood's residents were seasoned in gossip. Some looked at me with newfound respect. Others with pity. One woman even asked if I needed a ride to court. I declined. I'd be walking back into my house under my own power. That night, I sat in the dark with the file folder open in my lap. It had everything: court filings, bank statements, a photo of the sold sign on my lawn. But the thing that caught my eye most was a single slip of paper Miranda had tucked inside. It was in Jordan's handwriting, uneven and rushed. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm scared. I thought I could fix everything and ended up ruining it all. Please, just give me one chance to do better." It didn't move me the way he probably hoped it would. I didn't cry. I didn't soften. But I did think, hard, about what kind of person I wanted to be on the other side of this. In the morning, I told Martin, he'll get his plea deal. I won't stand in the way. But I want him to know something. Martin raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "He doesn't have a mother anymore. Not in the way he used to." The deal was struck. The DA agreed. Jordan would serve no jail time, but his record would show the charge. He'd pay back every cent, and would not be allowed near my financial or legal matters again. A restraining order wasn't necessary. I doubted he'd come close to me again, not unless he wanted a second case. 2 days later I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. "I don't expect you to ever forgive me. I just hope one day when the kids are older you'll let them know I tried. That I failed, but I tried." I folded it neatly, placed it in the back of a drawer, and went on with my day. When the moving van pulled up outside my house that Friday, I stood across the street, cane in one hand, keys in the other. The grass was overgrown. The shutters needed painting. But the moment I stepped inside, I was home. The air smelled like dust and wood and old memories. I opened every cabinet, touched every wall, walked from room to room like I was reacquainting myself with a long-lost friend. I slept in my own bed that night, the same bed Thomas and I had shared for 43 years. And I didn't think of Jordan once. The first morning back in my own house, I woke before the sun rose. The quiet was different than it had been at Rosewood. There the silence always felt like a waiting room, sterile and suspended. But here, in my own bed under my own roof, it was sacred. I lay still, listening to the hum of the heater, the creak of the pipes, my house whispering to me like an old friend saying, "You're safe now." I made coffee in my kitchen the way I used to. No K-cups. Just ground beans, a stained filter, and the old drip machine Thomas bought the year he retired. I stood by the window and watched the light shift through the magnolia branches, those leaves still strong and green. That tree had outlived my husband, outlasted my trust. But it remained, as did I. Over the next week, I reclaimed my life in pieces. I unpacked the quilts Miranda had folded into a single box, though I noticed the smallest, the blue one Thomas favored, was missing. I replaced the photos on the mantel. I sat in my garden chair every afternoon with a cup of tea and no one to answer to. The quiet wasn't lonely anymore. It was chosen. Jordan didn't call. He knew better. And I didn't reach out. People asked me, neighbors, even the lady at the post office, if I'd forgiven him. I gave them all the same answer. I've moved on. Which was true. Forgiveness, I've come to learn, isn't something you owe. It's something you give when you're ready, and when it serves you, not the person who hurt you. And I wasn't ready. I may never be. Sometimes, in the evening, I catch myself thinking of his children. My grandchildren. Their laughter used to fill this house. I imagine they're asking questions, confused why Grandma doesn't visit anymore. And that part stings, because they did nothing wrong. But I also know this. Protecting yourself sometimes means being misunderstood. It means being called bitter, cold, unforgiving. I can live with that. Because I couldn't live with what he did. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I tell it because too many people, especially women, especially mothers, spend their lives folding themselves down so others can stand taller. They give and give, believing love means sacrifice. But sometimes love means standing up. It means saying enough. It means choosing yourself, even when it breaks your heart. The house on Maple Lane isn't just wood and brick. It's memory. It's legacy. It's mine. And when I close the front door at night and turn the lock, I do it not out of fear, but out of peace. Because I am home. And I am finally whole. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful, real-life dramas that explore family, betrayal, and resilience. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Your voice matters here. See you soon in the next story.